you were supposed to be with the United States Air Force. That's in Texas. But there's also evidence that around that time you were in Ghana too, actively involved in many other things. So how do we know where you were, and how was your work schedule, let me put it that way, such that you could be in Ghana around that same time, 2004, 2005, yet you were also a member of the United States Air Force?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not too sure what the evidence is to suggest that I was around within that time.
Were you around or not?
Mr. Chairman, I was not.
All right, Honorable Calvin, I can ask you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nominee, I was asking from you to explain to this committee what has been your dealings with the Comptroller and Accountant General's Department.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of my organizations is a principal consultant for the Comptroller Accountant General's Department, and it has been involved in the provision of services like the electronic pay slip, electronic salary payment voucher, the electronic input forms, the third-party reference system, the bank account tracking platform, and the bank account monitoring and investment platform. Those are services that the organization that I led provided to the Comptroller and Accountant General's Department.
So, Honorable Kago, provides to or provided for, are you still in the service or out of the service?
Mr. Chairman, I am out of the service, but the question asks my dealings with the Comptroller Accountant General, I think based on what I listed on my CV.
So as of today, none of your companies have any dealings with Comptroller?
Mr. Chairman, my companies are actively dealing with Comptroller.
So no services provided for, service you are providing and continuing to provide.
Mr. Chairman, the company is, I am not, because I'm no longer associated with the company as a CEO.
But the company is still providing the service?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the company is providing the services.
Chairman, if you will indulge me, payroll and its management, and having perused your CV, you seem to be providing what arguably is a platform for dealing with payroll fraud and minimizing the incidence of ghosts on payroll in your dealings with the Comptroller Accountant General via the company that you so mentioned. What would be your recommendation to government? 2 steps to take to improve payroll management in the country.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the last 1.5 years that I have dealt with the Comptroller Accountant General, the platform that I provided, the electronic salary payment voucher, removed 20,958 ghost names from the payroll. And within that same period, saved about 700 million cedis, which is the annualized pay of the individuals that were removed on the payroll. I think a lot of measures have been put in place today to eliminate the issue of ghosts, which is a purely HR issue. The last frontier to the removal of this cancer that we have on the payroll is the implementation of the monthly biometric verification system. But I think that when that is implemented, Comptroller will no longer have any issue of ghost names. Yes, there is a biometric system in place today, but the biometric system is to get you on the payroll. But once you're on the payroll, if you work, if you leave, if you vacate post, there is no tool that captures that. In as much as I acknowledge that they are implementing the electronic salary payment voucher, which is a monthly validation of the payroll, that has some elements of, let me say, a loophole, and that can be cured with the monthly biometric verification, if so implemented. That would be the solution that I prescribe to government.
With your knowledge, you are talking of a dedicated HRM system. I am aware, as you should also be aware, that the HRM system is being developed by the Public Services Commission. Would you accept the argument that the most guilty government agencies are the GES of the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Was HR. And HR because a voucher is supposed to be validated within the month for Controller and Accountant General to pay. Now, this voucher, when it's published, is sent through a long chain, region, district, circuit supervisor, and then to the basic school, and then validated back. By the time it comes back, it's about 6 months. So if the person is no longer in the service, it makes it difficult for controller to have acted. The solution is to go electronic. They are finding a way to make sure that all institutions across the country go onto the IT platform to be able to validate their employees to clean the payroll of ghosts.
Chairman, given this answer, do you share the view that the controller should just be conceived and seen as a government treasurer and nothing more, and leave matters of HR? For instance, nurses and doctors, given the system you develop. I'm a nursing training. I'm in Anumabu or Salaga Midwifery School. My data and details are known as a nurse. I want to transit onto the system as a qualified nurse, and then I have difficulty assessing my salary. Why must that happen with the kind of systems that you build? And that's relative even to teachers.
Mr. Chairman, controller's responsibility, I find myself defending the controller, but I think it's because I've worked in that ecosystem. Controller's responsibility is to pay the salary that is brought to the controller. I wouldn't agree that the functions of the controller should only be treasury management. Payment of salaries is a core function of the controller. So is the preparation of the public accounts. The controller cannot pay salaries if the information is not brought to the controller and accountant general. So it's incumbent on the ministries that are working on behalf of its employees to ensure that the information is transmitted to the accountant general for him to make the necessary payments. But I am not aware that when any documentation is presented to the controller, there are delays in the payment of salaries. That one I am sure it is done promptly. It is the process of getting the information to the controller that sometimes delays the process. So I cannot support the argument that the controller should only be limited to treasury management.
You were involved in the politics of Suhum.
51.
And you are a gentleman and you look a gentleman. A lot of acrimony and mudslinging in the area of Suhum politics and undermine. Do you regret any action that you probably have been associated with in your bid to unseat or undermine or get involved in the politics? You are human, you have strengths, you have weaknesses. Do you regret any mudslinging actions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the Honorable said I am a gentleman and look a gentleman. If I can have that in writing. Just so. Thank you. On hindsight, I think there were some minor incidences that happened in Suhum. Yes, minor incidents. That I think being human, yes. Looking back, I regret. I wish some of those things had not happened. Thank you.
Past experience in security, military training, and I just want to relate. I mean, what, with the background that you have, how do you assess the security of Parliament and of MPs? in the current scheme of vigilante groups and their activities and what has been happening in London?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. An attempt to list the loopholes of parliamentary security in a public forum like this is just letting the enemy know what the loopholes are. So if you will spare me not to directly answer those questions, but to refer my recommendations to the House Committee to look into. Now thank you, Mr. Chairman.
In IT and also military. And that is an interesting combination, especially given the nature of terrorism these days. And I would like you to tell us how your experience will be brought to bear in the management of our security, especially as it has become so sophisticated and the enemy and others will use IT-driven technologies these days to cause a lot of mayhem. What is the relationship you see between IT and the safety of our state?
We as a country, there are major gaps. Major gaps. I've had the opportunity to speak with a lot of the security agencies, and I realize that we're lacking. But again, any attempt to profile the problems that we have will be to exposing ourselves to the enemy. So if you can allow me to send my recommendations to the appropriate bodies, which I'm already working with, the NCA, the Ministry of Defense, the Minister is here himself, and the National Information Technology Agency. We're having discussions on how we can use cyber security to counter terrorism.
Now, how is or was Charles North, an American citizen, known to you?
Charles North was a partner at one time.
When was this?
Mr. Chairman, in 2003.
And what business did you do with him and what happened? And again, Mr. Chairman, you take note that earlier I asked about the whereabouts of the nominee and the fact that he was in Ghana in 2003, 2004. I hope you take note. Thank you. So what nature of business were you doing with Charles North?
Mr. Chairman, a point of correction, the year that I was in Ghana that he mentioned was 2005, 2006, not 2003, 2004. And back to the question. In 2003, if you look on my CV, there was Atrion Networking, and I was a partner in that organization with Charles North.
Maybe a final one. The matter, the business deteriorated into a police case. A police report was written on it, and you were accused with others of an attempt to defraud him. How was it settled?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was in 2003, during the NPP primaries, and I have cited the letter that you have in the letter in circulation and probably in your custody. It was during the 2003 primaries that got Honorable Opariansa elected. A police case was made. The letter was written to the NPP headquarters that there was such a case of investigation against me, and therefore the party asked me to step aside. I was a rookie at that time in politics. I guess what, strangely, Honorable, immediately after the primaries, when I was asked to step aside, this case disappeared. I was not charged, I was not prosecuted. And so that is as far as I know about that case. In any case, I wasn't aware that there was any such letter in circulation until about 3 years ago, when I saw a copy of it, that indeed that was a letter that was written to the party headquarters. That is what I can say about that incident. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And congratulations, Mr. Nominee. Mr. Chairman, there appears to be quite a lot of noise in the room, and so
Can we have some order, please?
thank you. Mr. Nominee, this is a follow-up to an earlier question you answered as to how information is transmitted to the controller for inputting into the system to enable salaries and other things to be paid. You have quite some experience in IT, and you know that there's a dearth of IT professionals in the public sector. And this in line with the challenges that you've already experienced and the policy of improving or increasing the uptake of technology to enhance the efficiency in the public service. What recommendations would you make to improve the quality, one, and the number of IT personnel in the public services to facilitate the greater uptake of information technology to enhance efficiencies and the e-government that we're all preaching generally?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've worked quite a bit with the ministries of Ghana. And what I realize is that the IT staff they have on board are mainly technicians. The computer that we use in our offices is just to type and print documents. We don't fully take advantage of IT in terms of deploying applications to make our life easier. And so a lot of the IT people that we have in the ministries are moving from one offices to the other, changing cables, removing viruses from computers. They don't use them for what most of them are trained to do. Mr. Chairman, I recommend strongly that government should move into applications to make our life easier and get us to be more productive. NITA should take a strong role in ensuring that facilities are in place in all government agencies. We have training institutions like the Kofi Annan should partner with government to ensure that young men and women are trained. Those who are already in the service are given refresher training. And also, a key component of IT, the people, the clog we have in the civil service now, they don't want anything to do with IT. They are used to pen and paper, and they don't want to hear anything about IT. And therefore,
Yet they want to change the PCs every year.
And therefore, we must undertake a project of change management where a government brings a policy that we are going E, and that E, we have a strong change management approach towards it to ensure that those who must use those applications are not just using the computers. Mr. Chairman, you go to a lot of ministries, and even in the offices of ministers, every one of them, there's a laptop, there's a desktop sitting on the table. Sometimes it's covered, unused, yet every year it is changed. And so the Ministry of Communication should play a lead role in ensuring that, one, this change management process is undertaken, two, IT applications are deployed. I know of the e-Ghana project. I know of all the projects that the Ministry of Communications is undertaking, but it has not gone down into the civil service. And I would like to speak with the ministry and encourage the ministry and all the departments under it to push this through, because this is the way to go. Without our IT, Mr. Chairman, we're going nowhere.
Thank you. It has to start, like you're saying, with a change of attitudes and with the training of the requisite personnel so that they even understand what this e-government move is all about. But the more we increase the uptake of technology as well in the way we do things and the way we work, the greater we expose ourselves to threats in cyberspace. And yet, that's also a follow-up to an earlier question you answered. That is one area where we are completely asleep, more or less, because we don't appreciate the fact that the minute you turn on your smart device, whether you like it or not, you've opened the door to cyberspace, and anyone out there with malicious intent can also affect you. What will you do to improve the cybersecurity framework? Pardon? No. I'm asking a question. No.
Address the chair.
We have very weak capacity. So, based on his expertise and his experience, he could also share give us the benefit of his expertise and enhance the operations that we're already undertaking. One, what would you do to increase awareness about the dangers of the use of the tools, the increasing technology at our disposal? And what advice would you give? You already, in an answer, indicated that you are liaising with the defense establishment in terms of this. So I'd like not to go into too much specifics, but what would you do? One, to give us the benefit of your experience, and two, to increase the awareness about the dangers that we're all exposed to.
Thank you. There are 3 levels of security in the IT space. One is the user IT, the user experience, the user using the technology, who must be aware of the dangers in cyberspace. The second level of security that we have to look at is the network security, the space that the user is operating on. And there must be competent IT people managing the network security. The third one, which is a major one, is the national security, the data that is coming into the country. And that sits with NITA and all those big main one, Voltacom, all those people that are bringing data into the country. How are we ensuring that the data pipe coming into the country is secured? So there are 3 levels of IT security that we have to look at. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm working at least on the first 2 with some of the institutions responsible for that. At least I know I'm working with NITA, I know I'm working with the ministry, because they control, and the NCA, because they control the bandwidth that come into this country and deployment of IT security, IT services into key institutions, and therefore security must be top-notch.
As a Minister of State in the presidency, that doesn't give us, it doesn't even assist us in the way we vet you, because we don't know exactly what role you will be performing in the presidency. But my presumption is that you've had discussions with the president about your role in his office. So would you like to share with the committee exactly what you'd be doing as Minister of State?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've had discussions with His Excellency the President on my role. I am going to be working with him, having been part of the team that helped craft the vision, helped shape the manifesto of our party. There are a lot of political elements in the governance process that has to be handled at the presidency. So His Excellency wants me to come to the office of the President and handle political affairs.
Chairman, can I follow up? So Chairman, you have an elephant government, announced an elephant-sized government, and you are now announcing to us that you are minister responsible for political affairs. Is that the case?
Chairman, he didn't say
Mr.
so.
Chairman, that is not the case. I am saying...
Please, you didn't say so, that's all. So if the chairman wants to ask the question, he said you'll be working with the president, not minister for political affairs. The direct question.
Chairman, I said, fortunately, we have an elephant government. It has announced an elephant-sized government, and our colleague is benefiting from. You can benefit from the tie or the tusk of the elephant. He's telling us why he's benefiting from. What's your problem, Honorable Sla? Were you privileged for the president to define for you a role that
as responsible for any matter political. In manifesto, for instance, there is one factory, one district, one dam, one that. Which one are you responsible for politically?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When this honorable committee is kind enough to approve my nomination, I will receive my directions from His Excellency, the President. Thank you.